Good morning, it's Dave, All Things Important Reviews. Please smash that like button, please smash that subscribe button for more awesome watch content. This is a comparison review between two very recent Casio G-Shock G-Steel models. On the left we have a 2020 model. This is the GST-B300 SD 1A ER, and the one on the right is a 2021 model come out this year, GST-B400 D1A ER. They're both obviously the bracelet versions. Both have a very similar clasp. Both have a very nice bracelet, by the way. We'll talk about that later. The one on the left is obviously much bigger. It is physically a larger diameter. It is bigger thickness. It is bigger in every way, essentially. This year's model, they've toned everything down and they've made a much smaller watch. So, but which has very similar functions, although it does look slightly different. So let's start with the sizing as a comparison, because that is where a lot of the meat and potato is going to be, because obviously sizing is really important in terms of how things fit and feel. When you buy a G-Shock watch, you should know that generally G-Shocks are bigger sized than your average watches. They're not going to be 41 mil, they're closer to 50 mil in diameter, but even though they're all steel, they're not literally all steel. As you can see, there's plastic in the case design. Apologies. It has a carbon core technology that puts carbon fibre in the cases that gives it durability without, and strength without weight, basically, without significant weight. Because if these were literally solid steel watches, they would be too heavy. The one on the left, the GST-B300, is around 185 grams. The one on the right is around 160 grams, the B400. So 25 gram difference. Take off a link or two, again, which you're going to have to do on either watch, but you're going to be looking at a difference, you know, of around 25 grams, which is, it's not insignificant. It is moderately significant as a watch, you know, difference in terms of the feel. Sizing wise, the B300 is a big watch. The B300, the one on my left, is 15.5 mil thick to the top of the bezel. It is 15.3 mil thick to the top of the crystal. It's ever so slightly, you know, recessed into the bezel. The lug to lug is big. It's about 48, and the end link to end link is about, I believe, if I just measured it right then, I think it was about 57 mil end link to end link. Now on the B400, on this year's model, it's only around, I get it 13 mil thick to the top of the bezel, and to the inside of the crystal, or to the, sorry, not the inside of the crystal, to the top of the crystal, I think it's about 12.8, 12.9, something like that. So it is over 2.5, it is over 2 mil thinner than this year's model, than last year's model, sorry. You can see there how different they are in terms of the size. The B400 on my right has a much smaller end link, a much smaller lug width. Sorry, lug to lug, not lug width. Lug to lug of around, I believe it was about 46.5, 47 mil. And the end link to end link is also much more reasonable. Clearly see the difference there. Yeah, I think it's just over 50 mil. Let me just double check that. Right. The end link to end link is actually 54.3 mil. That measurement is actually fit. So it is actually not that much smaller. It's the lug to lug that is smaller, but that will affect wearability, which is why it does feel a lot better in terms of sizing, but it's not universes apart. And part of that reason is because the end link to end link is still significant on the B400. But overall, if you've got a wrist of less than 7 inches, sorry, I'm not feeling amazingly. Apologies about the coughing. If you've got a wrist size of less than 7 inches, I would not recommend the B400. Talking totally about sizing, because the B400 is a big watch. It's going to be on the bigger size of what most people can tolerate. Whereas the B400 on my right, because this is the B300, the B400, you could wear it down to say 6 inches. 6-inch wrist. Now I've got 7.5-inch wrists, so I can pull off this just. But the comfort throughout the day is superior, obviously, on the B400 because the sizing. However, wrist presence, again, one reason why the wrist presence is difficult to judge against these two watches is the stealthy look of the face on the B400 on the particular model that I've ordered, which is the 1A. On this model, they've gone with a stealthy look, as I've mentioned before, and that means that they actually, because you're not comparing, apples and apples, you're comparing apples and oranges, if you will, because these one have a much more clearer legible dial, which affects the visual impact of how the watch looks on the wrist. I think that if I can get a different model, which I am going to do from Japan, I'm going to get the Japanese market black dial, grenade dial black with tiny bit of blue on stainless steel bracelet. I'm going to order that and ship that over. And I think that will be a much fairer comparison in terms of how it looks on the wrist for sizing, because currently this looks a lot bigger. But I think that will change somewhat when it has a more legible indice layout, if you will. But sizing wise, I like both because I can pull it off, but that's because I've got big wrists. But for most people, they're going to much prefer this year's model, which is the B400. Okay, features and functionality. So they both have essentially all the same features, basically. Tough solar, world type. Tough solar, by the way, is absolutely amazing. If anyone's ever got it, ever never used it before, it basically means there's a battery inside that will last around 10 years. Don't quote me on that, but I think it'll last about 5 to 10 years. That will basically charge off fluorescent or non-fluorescent light. So you can leave it on your windowsill and it'll charge up in a few days. I think without any light at all, they will last generally on a full charge of 6 months. But obviously, even if it's just a normal lit room, or you put it under a lamp for a few hours, it will charge up. You never have to worry about changing batteries for years. It's brilliant. It is Casio's technology. There are other companies that have a similar solar technology, like Citizen. I think Seiko do a few, but there's not that many companies in the world that actually do watch solar technology, which is a shame, because you'll never go back to batteries, normal batteries, I should say. If your watch did run out of battery, you could always there is a battery in here. You could always change it. You could get Casio to change it, or you could buy one yourself or take it to a jeweler's and get it changed. So they are brilliant. They are miles better than, my girlfriend's father has had a Casio, I think it's an MTG model. It's like a really expensive one on a bracelet. It is actually an all digital one. This is from around 17 years ago. Okay. And I'm not kidding you, he has never changed the battery. He's never changed the battery from around, the model is about 17 years old, and he bought it around 14 years ago. and he's had it and he's never changed the battery, and the battery's still going. So there are you know, there's evidence online of some of them lasting over 15 years. So that's how long some of them can last if you're lucky. Now, you'll never wear the same watch for 15 years, or most people won't, but I'm just pointing that out there. So, I love Tough Solar. They both have Tough Solar. They both have all the world time, stopwatch, you know, light, auto illuminator. They both have that, if people don't know what that is. That basically, you can set it so that when the watch is on your wrist, you can set it so that when you tilt the wrist, the watch forward, when you tilt the wrist, the light automatically comes on. I'm not going to set it now whilst I'm on the video with you, but you can set it to do that. Now on this watch, that's a stealthy look, it kind of needs the light to properly view it. And the light, even though it does light up the sub dial, and it does light up the analog dial, it lights up both. The problem is, there's hardly any lume on the, well, there's no lume on the indices, but there is lume on the hands, but because it's so stealthy, it's still so difficult to see the time, and that I can't get used to it anymore. So I am actually going to sell this model, and I'm going to swap it because I'm not completely happy with the legibility of it, basically. Even though I knew that before I bought it, this is obviously 10 times more legible, but that's a style thing that they've done, and I'm not going to compare legibility when you can buy 6 other colour versions of this one, or the B400, and get far better legibility if you want it. Okay, so for functionality, they are both very similar. As I said, they have very similar overall functions. They both are analog digital. You've got a nice big fat clear dial, sub dial on the B300, which is excellent. You can get this model again in a negative version if you want it. I prefer actually the positive version. I think it looks nicer. The positive version not only has a positive sub dial, but this cog here, this wheel thing that turns around that tells you how much battery you have and other things, that is also positive. It's coloured slightly differently than the negative version. In this version, everything just looks dark on this particular model. Again, in January or in February when I get the new one, I'll compare them again, but to the other, or I'll show you the new one, which has a superior colouring of the dial on the B400. Looks-wise, looks are completely subjective, but I believe the winner for looks, personally, is the B300. I think the B300, with the 12 o'clock indices shown, with I prefer the way they've done the sub-dial there and not at the bottom, although I can see why, for ergonomically, it also works putting it at the bottom. I prefer the look, talking purely about look, I prefer the B300. But for sizing, the winner for me, again, is the B400. Even though I can pull off the 300, this is going to be comfy all day long. This is not. This, after around 6 to 8 hours, is going to be a bit more sweatier and a bit more not as comfortable because it's so big. And it's 185 grams. Oh yeah, and part of the reason why I was telling you before about this carbon core technology is that the plastic keeps the weight down. The plastic keeps the weight. There's plastic in this watch, basically. And the plastic keeps everything not ridiculous weight. If a watch is like 220, 250 grams, as some Breitlings are, they are too heavy for me. They just, and some Victorinox, you know, the Inox, that is really heavy watch. And that's because there's no plastic in it. It's all stainless steel, basically. Okay, so presentation though on both watches is still very good. They both have a sporty kind of casual look that you could get away with wearing with a shirt and possibly a business suit if you wanted to. But they are sports watch. They both have excellent durability, performance. You can go to the gym, run, go out in all elements, etc. Do what the hell you want with them because they're Casio Gshocks. You will not find watches on the market, categorically will not find them, with these specs, with this functionality, the tough solar, the world time, you know, Bluetooth, hook it up to your phone, get synchronized time. They both have Bluetooth if you want to do that. I never do it because I'm lazy and I don't want to burn the battery of my phone. You'll never find a brand currently that can do all that for sub 300 quid. It just doesn't happen on the market. Citizen, again, isn't close for this functionality in a single watch. And the style and everything and the performance, only Casio do that in the world for these prices that we pay. So just remember that. So that's why Casio Gshocks are my favourite watches in the world by a mile, because you get the value is second to none. Obviously, they don't come with all the QC issues that you get with the HOMAGES from China, and you get excellent, you know, some. I have had a couple of QC issues over time with some Casio watches, which I'll talk about in another video, but generally they've been excellent. And generally, do you know what? Casio have been really decent to deal with, and they're resellers. It's easy to get replacement bracelets and straps because they're so ubiquitous. You know, with other models and other makes, you're paying through the roof. I've not found I've been ripped off by them, which, you know, the number of companies that want to rip people off these days is ridiculous. Yeah, so let's move on to, so case backs. I'll show you them one by one because it's a bit, right, 1 second. Case backs both have a stainless steel screw down case back with some engravings. Nothing special, nothing spectacular. They're not going to do an exhibition window on what is ultimately a quartz watch, a tough solar quartz. Both extremely similar case backs with, again, the plastic or the carbon core technology there. Okay, let's talk about bracelets. Bracelets, they both utilize a fully solid stainless steel push pin, but a special type of push pin. Both have the same style, actually. They're both shaped slightly differently for whatever reason, and in fact the B400s, I believe, are actually slightly thinner. The B400 is slightly thinner and slightly smaller. It's kind of like, it's similar-ish to an oyster style bracelet, but it's more, it's got more angles on the links. But both bracelets are super comfortable, no sharp edges, and they both have a fantastic push pin system where, as I've explained, you put the tool in there and you just release, you push very gently and release the pin and then release the link. Super easy. A great system. No need for screwdrivers, no need for, no need for smacking the pin out. You don't have to do anything like that. You just literally put the tool in. A brilliant little system. And both with a push button, a double push button, deployant clasp with 4 micro adjusts. So they both have a very similar bracelet. Obviously, this is a smaller one because it's a smaller watch on the B400. Never had any issues with the Casio G Steel bracelets, really. They've always been very good. I mean, yeah, it's pressed metal, but again, it's not a biggie to me, that, because I've had them working for years. They've been fine. If you need to replace it, you can get the parts to replace it if it ever failed. So I'll just put them both on the wrist. Yeah, I mean, for me, because you can get them both in good deals online on eBay and Amazon and stuff like that, or go on Price Runner to get the best prices. You know, looks wise, I still believe that the B300 is superior, but size and fit is superior on the B400 because it's smaller, and it's going to be more applicable, but it's not got the same wrist presence. This has a really good wrist presence, which is what I like, but maybe this will feel like it has a better wrist presence when the indices are more legible on the other colours. I have to say, colour variants are superior in terms of choice on the B400. The B400 has a green one, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It has a black one, it has a grenade dial black one, sorry, that is only for the Japanese market, but you can import it. It has a crimson red one, which is again beautiful. And it has like a blue and black one, an all black with a blue dial one. So the colour variants are superior on the B400 than the B300. But for some reason, I keep edging towards the B300 to wear as a wear, because it has to be the legibility of the dial for me that's done it. But that's not a fair comparison, because they don't do an all stealthy one on the B300. So I'm not going to compare them both in that fashion, because you can buy the other, as I've mentioned, you can buy the other ones. But they both feel really good on the wrist. This one definitely feels smaller, definitely, because it is smaller. But you know, if I had to pick right now with just these two colour versions, I would pick the B300, because I'm so used to wearing a big watch and I'm so used to seeing the legibility of the dial that I'd pick that. But if I had the other colour models, I've got a feeling I would pick the B400. So yeah, guys, so brilliant watches. They are worth the RRP. Not that I would pay that, because you can get it cheaper. I got this one for around 230 quid. I got this one for around 250 quid. Again, the RRP on this one, the B400, will be around 399. The RRP on this one will be around 379, 399. But don't pay that. You can get them in deals a lot cheaper. So I hope you enjoyed that mini comparison. If you've got wrists below 7 inches, I would strongly suggest you pick up the B400 in different colours. If you've got bigger than 7-inch wrists, if you can get it cheap enough, I suggest the B300 is just as good as this one. But it is going to be less comfortable as an all-day wear. Now, I've got coming a watch that I bought in Thailand in June or July. It was either because I was there from June to like mid-July 2019. I bought it in a place called Central Festival, which is a retail unit, a big shopping mall place and food place in a place called Pattaya in Thailand, one of my favourite places in the world, which is where I'll hopefully be living eventually. And the watch is actually called the B200, which came out a year before this one in 2019. I bought it on the rubber band, and that was the comfiest rubber band that I've used on a G-Shock before, on a G-Shock G-Steel. It's not on a G-Shock overall, but on a G-Steel, it was super comfy, it was super light, and that watch, that B200, compared to these two, it's kind of like an in-between model. It's thinner than this one, it's about 14.3 mil thick. It has a smaller case, again, I believe. It does look even more sportier though than this one. And I've actually ordered it again, but I've ordered it on the stainless steel bracelet, the D model, to give a comparison between all three, because and I have missed that watch. I regretted selling it. I sold it before I started this channel in 2020, and I did regret selling it. But yeah, that's coming tomorrow, so I'll do an unboxing for that to show you. Okay, if I don't post any more videos before Christmas, have a great Christmas. Thanks a lot for showing me support this year. Hopefully next year we're going to grow even more when I've got more money, more watches coming in, more reviews, more awesome content. Thanks a lot. It's been Dave.